out really quickly
Right.
because it's sand.
Right.
And so, I mean, the grass is dying everywhere because,
This is usually desert.
yeah, it's just drying so fast.
Right.
And the same thing will happen in the garden. We need to mulch everything.
So mulch is, though, it's really
I mean,
important.
yeah, or we're going to have to water every 4 hours as it gets bigger. It's going to draw any moisture out.
Yeah, I guess that one of my friends has a farm in Maine,
Mm-hmm.
and he said have a well-mulched garden. Like that was his number one thing.
Yeah.
And even that, though, it's like I don't know anything about gardening. I'm open to learning. I want to learn. And so, not knowing what is sufficiently mulched.
Yeah, of course.
That's the other
Just
thing.
experience.
And also, the mulch here, are some of those wood chips too big?
We'll talk about that another time. For me, this is work,
Yeah, let's not talk about work.
Yeah,
That's the
just
point.
relax. Yeah, there's plenty of time for everything.
I feel like I wanted to talk to you from, when you first started talking at the circle when you got here,
Okay.
because, I noticed, like, you're very conscious, and everything you're talking about, like, you're speaking my language, but, like, I don't usually speak that to most people because they don't know what I'm talking about. Like, when you're talking about Saturn return and all that stuff, and so I guess I just kind of wanted to talk to you more about your journey and, like, and I noticed you clear energy and stuff, and so, because I'm familiar with that world.
Yes.
And it was kind of, like I said, a breath of fresh air, and to be like, oh, I'm not the only one. And you're more outward about it, and I applaud you for that. My journey just started, like, 2 years ago. Like, I gradually had my awakening.
It doesn't matter how you say it. People will feel it if you can keep your center.
Right.
Even if they don't understand the words at all, they'll feel it.
Right. Oh, that's good advice. So when did you have your awakening? Was it when your Saturn return, or was it before that?
Well, I'll give you my quickie life story, all right? Obviously, I was born and raised in Alaska. And it was really scary for me because I'm like, who's going to take care of me? I mean, I have two brothers, and everyone's vying for attention with my mom. And I'm like, I better figure out how to take care of myself. So I started studying Indians and like wild edible foods. I'm like 7 years old. I'm like, looking in the library trying to figure it out. And my room was completely covered with Indian paraphernalia, dream catchers, anything. And I had an Indian name. It was called Strongbow. Everyone called me that. And when I was 11, my bus driver going to school would call me Strongbow, and he gave me a copy of a book called The Tracker.
Right.
And it changed my life. Tom Brown Jr., he's all about living with the land and not living off the land. You see, mountain men live off the land. And so I changed from wanting to be an Indian to wanting to be a tracker, wanting to be an interactor.
How old were you at this
11. Yeah. And
So you knew from an early age then who you were?
No.
No?
I'll digress. 3 kids, 1 mom. She works 8 hours a day, right? You can't get enough vital energy. So you vie with your brothers, you try to get energy. She comes home, she's tired after work, and she's got to cook dinner. Look at me. Well, she can't. Well, she doesn't love me. You know what I mean? Like, emotional stuff, you just don't have it to give. We're not meant to raise, we're meant to be in the tribe, to have people around to make us feel secure. A secure kid, they can run off and do their thing. You insecure kid? Which is what you see out there. So yeah, I was just completely filled with fear the whole time. And it's not far from fear to victim. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. And so, well, I'll back up, and since I digressed, I'll just continue on for a little bit. I was an excellent competitor, by the way. Like I was the star child. Does that make sense? So of the 3, I sucked up all the energy. Does that make sense? And
Were you the oldest?
middle.
Oh, that's interesting, because generally the first is one that, based on like the psychological studies, it's like the first child becomes usually like a white collar, like straight A student to take care of like the families.
Yeah.
Situations, and then that's why the middle child's the rebel, because so just but that's interesting that you were the middle.
I hate to say it, but I better not say it. It's just
say
I had a lot of bright energy. Does that make sense? Like I learned right away how to get attention, and that left my brothers with getting negative energy.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it was obvious to everybody that I was the favorite, and my mom tried hard not to. She's a really good mother, but at the same time, Actions speak louder than words. You know? So I at least survived. But I survived by being cutthroat, like my little brother. I doubt he'll watch, but so I wrote to Tom Brown. I lived in rural Alaska. I couldn't get his books. There's no bookstore around that carries Tom Brown's Tracking Nature Wilderness Survival Manual, right?
So your family, as a child, you lived in rural Alaska?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would write him, and he became my pen pal. He lives in New Jersey, and we wrote, you know, a couple, 3 times a year, and he'd send me his new books as they came out, signed. You know, you imagine, you're 12 years old, you got. He was my god. You know?
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, it was really. I feel blessed. Yeah. Then, as time went on, you know, adolescence hit, and I was really angry. You know, and it's easy to find somebody to be victimized by if you're looking to be a victim. I mean, it's the people coming across the border taking our jobs. It's this, you know. For me, at this point, we moved to North Pole, Alaska. It's near Fort Wayne, right? We were country, and there was all people come up with their parents, and they have more of a gang mentality. So when we'd fight, when we'd have trouble, they'd all jump in. Does that make sense? To be
right.
And I'm talking about boys. We fight with each other, fight with you, and then you have beer afterwards, or you're around, you're like, yeah, I was dumb. This new introduction really made a rivalry, and we basically had 2 gangs, a neo-Nazi gang and you know, black gang, that hated each other. But it's also natural for the young to push and feel and be strong.
Right.
But with no support in this culture and just strong victim roles, it was really ugly, you know. And I was righteous, you know what I mean? You know, injustice. No talking about all the underlying reasons why that happened, just bitterness. So I went to Tom Brown School when I was 18. You have to be 18 to go. And I was only going to go for the week, and then I was going to go to Idaho. I wanted to join the big neo-Nazi movement there. It was really stronger then in the 90s. And so I went to Tom Brown's, and I was excellent at skills at that point. I've been practicing my whole life. So I didn't learn anything particularly, but of course Tom is there. You know, meet this man who's been my idol since I was just a kid. And I'm full of myself, and I'm obviously the star. There's 70 people in the class, right? And I'm better than the instructors that he has working for him at the time. So I'm like being my arrogant self and, you know, showing off a little bit. Most of them just like, pfft. And then at the end of the week, I'm like, I'm ready to go home. I mean, I met my first vegetarian. I met my first, you know, it was righteousness for me, but it changed my righteousness, my injustice, my victim status. You know? And then the last day we were there, Tom Brown led a sweat lodge. I'd never been in a sweat lodge before, you know. All 65, 70 people are in this huge lodge, you know, all the way to the fence.
I've never seen one that big.
It's big, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. Really low, you know, and flat.
I've been in sweat lodges, but not one.
Yeah, 65, 70.
Wow.
We've been in 90, 100 people come to classes before.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've been in a lot of sweat lodges, and he never did this in anyone but the one that I was in, which I just found extremely interesting. And I never talked to him, by the way, that whole week, because there's 70 people demanding his attention, and, you know.
Did he know that you were his pen pal?
He didn't know I was his pen pal. Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't say anything.
He's a god.
Still, he's still a person.
You'll understand, like, consider, like, talking to Tom Cruise or talking to somebody, they're like...
I don't mind.
Tom has this thing of, like, don't talk to me, right? I mean, people are there, and I'm not joking, they're like, they're my... Because they read his books. And so to keep that off, he's got this, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. And I'm 18, I'm like, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? I'm that kid from Alaska. You know what I mean? I'm not looking to demand his attention. I'm happy to adore from afar. Right? So the last day, we're there. And we're in Sweat Lodge. And he never talked to me, he didn't know me. I mean, maybe he could read my energy, my self-righteousness, my full of myself, right? So he's in there, he does the 7 arrows, blessings to the east, west, north, south, blah, blah, blah. And then he said something that he never said in any of the ones I was with him. He said, I want you to send love to your enemies. You know? And so I'm in there, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. You know? Screw you. You know? I ain't doing what you told me to do, you know? And so he did a couple of rounds of heat, no talking. He says it again. I want you to visualize light coming out of your head and go into the people you feel hurt you. And I says, man, you don't know the hurt I've been in, you know, getting trampled in the ground by boots by 5 dudes, you know, blah, 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 you know, so I'm holding on to that bitterness, you know. In a couple of rounds, he says it again. He says, I want you to, anyone you feel has done you an injustice, feel the pain that they must have been coming through to want to cause you harm, right? And I was like, God dang, this is Tom Brown. You know what I mean? So I did it, you know, like I tried to visualize light coming out of my feet, through my head, and the people around me that I felt wronged me, you know. And it really broke something in me, you know, like that
was your inciting moment.
Just like that. I couldn't hate anymore. I haven't been able to hate like that since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
I mean, I came outside of vomiting on the ground, you know, and like I lost so much dead skin, and I just felt like
you
I
were
was
like shedding.
Yeah. I mean, really. I mean, it might have been a week camping with a survival class, but at the time it meant something to me. You know, I just went like that, and there were fingernail marks on my arm, you know.
That's interesting because I've had that at like certain points, but I never really considered it in that way.
Might be we just
like
noticed
even
it then.
hands and feet too. No, but like peeling.
Yeah. I don't know. It's magic. You know,
That's
even
so
me noticing it
strange.
was magic because I was so filled with anger that I wasn't that observant. I'm just down to a pinhole instead of seeing a broader picture, you know. Anyway, it changed my whole life, and so I.
So that was.
You know, and of course, polarity being what it is, I was filled with hate and anger and self-righteousness. Well, now my new identity is I'm full of love and I'm hippie and I'm a vegetarian and I'm let my hair grow out long as down my back, you know. Experience a spectrum to try to find middle. I mean, I didn't know that at the time. I'm like, this is the way. That is the way. But if you can keep open, you'll eventually see the other side, right? And yeah, I just experimented with that for a long time, and I would call that experimenting with the feminine because we're not supported masculine or feminine in this culture, and so I'd been embodying the masculine to the max, and then I embodied the feminine to the max, and then I tried to find where my essence is in that spectrum, you know. I would say at Tom's, I decided my lesson, my quest in life was this, to decide what is true human nature and what our culture says is human nature. Because as I grew up, I was like, I'm not supposed to be raised this way. Right? I don't know what is, but this isn't right, right? I'm not supposed to be treated like this. And it wasn't that my parents were bad; they're just exhausted.
Right, and it's just what they know based on how they
were raised.
Exactly, that's what they
just did. So much better than their parents.
Yeah,
you know,
and
really.
it's like each generation.
Yes, it's moving forward. You know.
Even with labels too, like I really have a hard time with labels because even the definition of a word is primed by your experience.
Absolutely.
And so I don't even like to use them. Even the way I eat, I can't even describe it to you. You know, and then I'm like, oh, it's this, 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 and this. It's like mainly vegan, but sometimes if it's free range and, and I killed it myself, I don't mind it. Like,
you got different meanings for everybody.
Exactly. And it's so interesting how what you're saying is true in terms of just society tells you what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to be, you know, and I mean, it's for every topic, even like sexuality and, you know, what's right and wrong and instead of what is, and it's true. And this is like these are all the things I like blog about and talk about in everyday life, and here there's been that void, and so I was just so happy when you came. I was like, oh my God. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I recognize the kindred spirit in you as well. I didn't want to seem to play favorites.
Of course. And then when you said the quote, I was like, oh my God.
I think you're the only one that heard that.
You think?
I do. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Because, and then what you were saying too with the kind of going in, retreating with inspiring material.
A lot of people heard that. when I talk to her.
Oh, they do.
Yeah. I mean, I've had 3 people already go to a whole call, go to a quiet place and find their center, and be like, "It rocked me when you said that." Especially Rob, love you.
Yeah.
What an example. You know,
Yeah.
so much courage. Really gave me hope. I was feeling a little low yesterday.
Yeah. I've done